So if current clinical practice is not effective in identifying disability, what can be done? Well, hopefully, going forward. Now, people may say, yes, but they require. In fact, in order for something to shift like this, it takes a long time because it was so appealing. Well, you could say a 76 doesn't get services. That's not 1.5, but a 77, now that does, right? But it's completely flawed. So to change the way people do things takes time. It takes building up a knowledge base. And there are a bunch of you out there who already know how to do appropriate assessment, who already knew that this age equivalency stuff was ridiculous. There's a lot of people that stopped doing evaluations because they couldn't ethically and morally do it. I kept doing them because I kept doing them my way and they were accepted. But I completely understand and respect people who said, I can't do these evaluations anymore. I can't do them, right? Now, I invite those people to come back into the evaluation practice. If you're one of the people that's been using age equivalencies and chronological age and dividing them, come up with these 33.22%, you know, you've got to go back. Go back, look at the law, look at the regs, look at the state information, the city information, policies and guidelines, and also go back and look at your assessment materials from when you were in graduate school, because you'll see it's right there. Look at your professional association, lots of information there on this. Okay. So remember I said the most important question is, who is this child? Who's this child before you? Because if you don't know who this child is, you have no idea what's disabled or not, whether there's a problem where it's different from typically developing. So we want to know, what's their language acquisitional history? We're going to look a lot more at this stuff tomorrow to give you something to think about, or in day 2. Language acquisitional history. What's the exposure to languages and dialects over time? What are the sociocultural influences? Think about the Pena and Quinn study that looked at talking about function, distinguished the children who were typically developing from those who had low language, but looking at labeling did not. Think about the Hart and Risley study, where we looked at kids and the vocabulary was related to socioeconomic status. Think about that. And think about the prior knowledge the child brings. So, how old are you? Well, how about what day of the week were you born on? How about what's the longest river in Ghana? How about what do the stars mean? If you go to the Isla del Sol and Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, every single child can describe to you what's going on in the skies at night. It's an extraordinary, beautiful thing. Not that many kids in New York can do that. We're testing, we don't test stars, but we test other things. We're testing things that we think they should know versus things they've been exposed to. Now, I'm not saying we need to go figure out about the stars and the Bolivian skies over Isla del Sol, but we need to know, how are we assessing this child? What does this child bring to the table? What are the prior experiences? Think house. So the standard is whether the CPSC administrator can see whether the child needs services. Does this child come to life when they read your evaluations? So what I'd like you to do when you're writing your reports, after you read them, do you think the person reading them can close their eyes and see the child? A hologram, the child comes to life. At some of the review meetings that I've been to with CPSC administrators, you have pages of evaluations and nothing tells you anything. Then finally you find like 3 lines that say, oh, I think I get it from here. And you pray the parent walks in with the child, so you can at least make some inferences about the child's skills. So I'll give you some examples just to get things, showing how to do it. So we're not just saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Here's what we have to think. Now here. This is an evaluation of a 2-year, 9-month-old boy from a psychologist. It shows you how to describe this child and how to bring in your clinical judgment. So looking at play skills and interaction, George demonstrated, read it with me, some functional and relational play skills. When directed, George was able to feed the baby with a spoon and give the doll a drink with a cup. So here we have some nice symbolic play, representational. Although he did not produce such play spontaneously, so his play skills were depressed. He did engage in spontaneous functional play, such as holding an airplane and making it fly. However, George never sought to engage others in his play, nor seemed to respond to efforts to create a reciprocal play scenario. So his play skills are very basic. There were some strengths, but and those are the things obviously you're going to build on. But he didn't have what you would expect play skills. Now, this is so much more telling than Westby play skills, symbolic level 4, Roman numerals, of course. You know, this is so much more telling. This is a boy who is on the autism spectrum. Same boy, nonverbal IQ. Now, this is when we're thinking about what the child brings to the table. George seemed comfortable and confident with puzzles. He completed it, this is a 2-year, 9-month-old, a 9-piece puzzle board, placing the shape pieces in their spaces with ease. He also easily put together freestanding 2-piece puzzles of familiar objects. This kid flew through these puzzles. Wow. George's ability to perform these tasks was impressive. But at the same time, it should be noted, here's your clinical judgment, here's thinking about what the child brings to the table, that this may be an overlearned skill acquired during his 25 hours a week of ABA that focused on these types of tasks. Now, this child, 2 years, 9 months, he had been getting EI services. This was his transition to CPSE evaluation. He'd been getting EI services for 8 months, 25 hours a week of ABA, 3 hours of speech, 2 hours of OT, right? Child on the spectrum. What they did in ABA, what they did in ABA was colors, shapes, body parts, numbers, letters. So the mom, he was very interested in letters. The mom said, what letter does train begin with? 2 year, 9 month, he picked the train. He was obviously a smart boy. Yet in all those 9 months, when he most needed to know social interaction, they never touched it. So the mom said, yeah, the child learned, yeah, that child, he's doing great with the things they taught him. But he hasn't made any progress in social interaction, which is his disability. Enormous waste of money. But worse than that, the poor child has lost 8 critical months out of his life. And this evaluation brings that in. Here's Molly, 2 years, 6 months old. Molly used language well for a variety of purposes. Her play skills were at least age appropriate, as she easily engaged in symbolic and imaginative play. Okay, some evaluators say that and end it. Symbolic play, blah, 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 blah. Let's make the hologram. Let's have the kid come to life. For example, when she saw a picture of a butterfly, she said, do you have a butterfly in your home? I'm going to pretend I got a butterfly. With this, Molly pretended to have a butterfly net, look for a butterfly in the air, spot one, catch it, and put it in the pretend purse she picked up off the floor. Then she pretended to close the purse so the butterfly would not get out. You see this child? You know this child is typically developing, if not very bright. She's got play skills, she's got language, she's got cognition. She's extraordinary. Problem. She was brought for a disability evaluation. Psychologist who used the standardized tests on her found that she was mildly to moderately cognitively impaired. This tells you it's just not the case. So to be very clear, quantification is required. A 25% delay is a mild to moderate delay, based on what would be expected given the child's past experiences. A 33% delay is a moderately severe to severe delay, again, based on what would be expected given the child's past experiences. So how can an evaluator identify a 25% delay or a 33% delay? That's why you need your master's and doctorate. You need to bring clinical judgment to the table. Otherwise, I'll run off for 3 days with those community college graduates for psych, another 3 days for speech, another 3 days for OT, another 3 days for evaluator, and we're done with evaluations. And then we'll pour those tens of millions of dollars that we spend each year on this into quality preschools. But their future is at stake with every evaluation that we do. So that's why it's important. So we will continue on day 2 of this workshop on preschool evaluations. We're going to be looking at what does the research tell us about how to implement appropriate assessment. And we're going to look at parent interview, and we're going to look at dynamic assessment, a lot of dynamic assessment from the research. So thank you so much for your time.